guys are different, man. You guys are special. So it's up to y'all to seize the moment.
XFL's here in Jackson State. Coach Prime had his players ready to go. When you're talking about the South, you're talking about athletes, guys that can run, that are explosive, that change direction. And that's the stuff you can't teach. That's birthright. And that's what they have here.
Said you ain't get detention. Cameras are here. The mics are here. What else you want?
South athletes, they're built differently. They're used to this humidity, this heat. That's what gets them warmed up and get that sweat going, blood flowing, and put on a show. And that's what they did today here at Jackson State.
If you don't see there's opportunity, there's something wrong with you. Because your moment is right now.
What is up, my friends, and welcome to another edition of the XFL Week in Review. I'm your host, Mark Perry, editor of XFL News Hub, your spring football media guru. On this week's show, special show this week, Dean Dalton, executive director of the NFL Alumni Academy, is on talking everything about the XFL partnership, some things that I had no idea about. You're going to learn some new things about quarterbacks and all sorts of cool stuff. So you definitely want to stick around for that. Ray Austin, Fan Control Football Commissioner, talking season 3.0. Player tryouts are coming up. There's been some adjustments to that. We talk about that. We talk about Terrell Owens and Johnny Manziel, and kind of we even talk about Fan Control Sports and how entertainment, how they've changed their brand and now are going to do hoops. Mike Bibby is on to be the coach of their. I can't wait for the hoops. I mean, I grew up a basketball fan, New York Knicks fan through and through. And, you know, during the Patrick Ewing era, that was kind of my, Jordan and all that stuff. And, I haven't really been into basketball, but the Fan Control Hoops has me very interested, and that's going to take place at the same Pullman Yards area in their same studio. So we could talk all about that kind of stuff. Plus, we have some interesting XFL news about the draft, some quarterbacks coming to the league as well that have signed with the team, and so much more. So again, how do you get in touch with the show? It's really simple. Email podcast@XFL News Hub with your thoughts, or record an MP3 or video on your phone. We'll play it on next week's show, or leave a voicemail, 888-430-7692, extension 3. It's really easy to do. Not that very complicated, guys. Not that complicated. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We're on Stitcher, Audible, Player FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and definitely leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. And we are live, XFL Week in Review, live at 8 p.m. Eastern every Monday on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch always. And we have the timeline, October 23rd, which is 13 days from today. The Specialist Showcase will take place. October 22nd, I believe there's another showcase taking place. We've reported on that one. November 16th and 17th will be the XFL Draft. We also got news on those dates. January 9th, 2023, the XFL training camp begins, and February 18th, 2023, XFL season begins. 130 days from XFL kickoff. Exciting times. But, we didn't get the team names and logos. We really thought it was going to happen. I think it was planned to happen. Then Ian came, wrecked everything. Now my prediction has got to be at the end of the month. It's got to be after Black Adam. That's what I think. I think everything is kind of pushed towards the Black Adam release. All the energy is in there right now, and then they can focus on the XFL from that point forward. So I think we're not going to get anything, hopefully before. Remember, Danny Garcia and Jerry Cardinal are appearing at some event October 26th in New York. So you would think that they would have those things out by then, but you still don't have to. Maybe we go into November. We'll have to kind of wait and see on how that goes. But didn't hear anything today, and I don't expect to hear anything this week. But that doesn't matter, because there are still XFL news that you need to know about as we gear towards the season. So if you like football, then like and subscribe to our channel. Let's get the show to 60 likes. Hit the notification bell to get alerted when we go live and when we post new content. We also have we don't have a question of the week. We're not going to get into the social because we have 2 interviews. Of course, we've got no team names. We'll get to our donate thing. We'll talk about our donate weekly spotlight via the XFL Week in Review podcast. And then we also have our football, and we'll talk to people in the chat as well. So we're going to get into the news first. Then we will get into the 2 interviews, and then we'll finish up with your social media stuff. All right, my friends? So without further ado, folks, let's just get into the week that was the XFL. Former Hawaii quarterback Cole McDonald and Elon's Davis Cheek have signed 2 XFL contracts. This is an exclusive from XFL News Hub. The pieces of the XFL continue to take shape after the first group of quarterbacks were officially released and assigned per Mike Mitchell. More quarterbacks have been linked to the XFL per source. Hawaii's QB Cole McDonald and former Elon quarterback Davis Cheek have both signed to XFL contracts for the upcoming 2023 seasons. Both QBs were recently listed in Mike Mitchell's 20 potential XFL QB list that was released on September 8th. Both players recently have been working with the NFL Alumni Academy and were sent there by the XFL per multiple sources in both leagues. All players who participated in the academy this season will receive an opt-in contract to join the XFL in 2023. McDonald has been attached to the XFL since asking for his release in the CFL, most recently seen at the then Hawaii Showcase earlier this year. McDonald does bring professional experience to the XFL, 6'4" California native, threw 70 touchdowns in 2 years starting at Hawaii, which led him to be a 7th-round pick in 2020. After failing to get on with the Titans Cardinals, McDonald played in 1 regular season game for the Toronto Argonauts, however, was released in May of 2022. Davis Cheek is another true rookie that looks to be part of the XFL's promise to have younger talent like Drew Plitt. Cheek was also cut during the 2022 NFL training camp by the Carolina Panthers upon a successful trade of Baker Mayfield. We've seen all the problems there. PJ Walker might get the start this week. Cheek comes from Elon University, an FCS school in North Carolina, where he started 40 games over the span of 5 seasons. As the XFL season creeps closer and closer, it appears that fans and media alike are beginning to see more and more of the pieces that will construct our favorite teams. With the addition of McDonald and Cheek, now 10, possibly 11 with Brian Scott, quarterbacks are now associated with the XFL. With the addition of the continued draft pool invites and more players signing to the NFL Alumni Academy, the picture of who will be taking the field come February 2023 becomes a bit clearer over the past several days. So stay tuned to XFL News Hub as we learn more quarterbacks coming online and potentially other big draft picks coming to the XFL. The XFL draft is going to be a 2-day event. Neil Stratton of Inside the League recently got some questions answered by XFL Senior Vice President of Player Personnel, Doug Whaley. Here are the notes from this week's newsletter. First, the draft will be held not only on November 16th, but also November 17th. It's going to be a 2-day event. The league has identified 10 to 14 quarterbacks who will be targeted once the league irons out a few contract issues. Also, offensive linemen are a priority as the league continues to add to its player pool. Now, we heard from XFL St. Louis head coach Anthony Becht a few weeks ago that the XFL draft was on November 16th. Now we see it will be a 2-day event. Still no official word from the XFL on the draft. We still don't know if it will be held online or shown on ESPN or when it will occur. Is it going to be day or is it going to be night? So far, based on XFL Director of Quarterback Development Jordan Palmer's Instagram account, we know of 9 potential XFL quarterbacks. XFL insider Mike Mitchell already had the tentative team assignments. Juwan Pass at San Antonio, De'Ara King, America's Team DC Defenders, Brandon Silvers in Houston, Steven Montez in Seattle, Jalen McClellan in Las Vegas, Drew Plitt, Arlington, Ryan Willis, Go Hokies, St. Louis, and DeAndre Francois in the Orlando. Also add Cole McDonald and Davis Davis Cheek to that list as well. And then also you have Brian Scott. So no surprise the XFL is looking for good offensive line players, good O-line players are hard to find, even in the NFL. Still, we have not heard team names and logos, making fans a bit frustrated. It looks like the Hurricane Ian caused that, knocking the XFL off its planned schedule of local activation events were set to take place, but were canceled, and we have yet to be rescheduled. With The Rock's promotion schedule, which for Black Adam, fans might have to wait until the movie premiere on October 20th to get some more news. But we do know now that the XFL draft is going to take place November 16th and 17th. The question is, where is it going to be? Are we going to have something on ESPN or online? Details, I am sure, will come soon. So IFL, Indoor Football League team owner, hints at player pipeline to the XFL. So another player talent pool has potentially appeared for the XFL to draw from. This was interesting. So Kathy Trinkler, team owner of the IFL's Green Bay Blizzard franchise, stated earlier this week on the team's podcast, Strictly Blizness, that the league would be allowing an exemption for their players to jump to the XFL if the opportunity arises. The IFL currently restricts players from breaking their contracts unless they sign with the CFL or NFL, but according to Trinkler, I'm going to get in trouble for saying it wrong. The XFL will become part of that exclusionary cause. Quote, and working with the rest of the IFL owners and having our guys pilfered, we thought let's team up or try to assimilate with one of those two, USFL and XFL. So we picked the XFL to join, not necessarily a partnership, but to let guys go back and forth between the team. This is from the Green Bay Blizzard owner. Triankler mentioned how while this has not been formally announced by the IFL, that the information would soon be posted to the league's website. In addition to this announcement, there would also be details about player combines featuring coaches from both leagues. She also goes on to talk about how players are constantly seeking new ways to forward their careers on the gridiron, and that ultimately this is one of the league's primary objectives. She punctuated this revealing by saying that the XFL better aligns with the IFL's mission statement. Quote, at the end of the day, this is what these pro leagues are about. We take serious the athlete, and the athlete should take themselves seriously about getting to the next level, close quote. The information came after she disclosed that fellow IFL owners discussed an arena football league revival, but that ultimately a relationship with the XFL may prove to be more fruitful. The XFL and its ownership group has yet to mention any such collaboration with the IFL. We have the full podcast here. Very cool that the owner of the team has a podcast that comes out. Nice looking studio there and everything. IFL, if you don't know, that is where players like Kurt Warner of the Iowa Barnstormers, if you've seen that movie, that was about his life. I mean, this is where it is. So the XFL seems to be very open with working with these leagues like the IFL to allow these players to move back and forth. We heard that part of the XFL contract was just a one-year deal, that there was no lock-ins like there is for the USFL, where players, that are stuck with the USFL for 2 years, that actually play unless they get moved to the NFL. The XFL seems to be just letting the players come and go as they please. So we will wait for a official announcement from the IFL coming soon, we assume. We'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back with the interviews right after this. Stay tuned, my friends. What's up, XFL Army? If you're a fan of the XFL News Hub and you have a telephone, which I know all of you do because you're sitting there playing on your phones all the time, then why not download the XFL News Hub app? That's right, it's on iTunes. It's on Android. We have an Android version and an iPhone version of the XFL News Hub app. So what do you get? You get the latest news from XFL News Hub, the premier source of XFL news in the universe. Plus, you get push notifications when we have breaking news. You will be the first to know. You can leave a comment on some of the news right from your phone. Plus, you get this podcast on your phone phone as well. Remember, you can leave us reviews on the Google Play Store or iTunes. It links to other social media, our other social media accounts, and so much more. Be in the know. I know you're on your phones. People are on their phones all the time. They never get off their phones. So why not just download the XFL News Hub app on your Android or iPhone today? All you need to do is go to the Google Play Store or iTunes and just type in XFL News Hub. That's XFL News Hub. Download our app on your phone today. All right, we're here with Dean Dalton, Executive Director of the NFL Alumni Academy. Dean, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy with the Academy rolling right now, so I appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, we're literally on the field as I speak, and I jump back into our lodging for training camp here. It's the Sheraton Hotel, so this is part of where I live for the next football season here.
Gotcha. So I guess before we get started, I always like to ask guests, give us your superhero origin story. How did you get from high school kid all the way to now being the director of the NFL Alumni Academy?
It's not a typical journey or a natural progression. Out of high school, I played every sport you could play in high school, and was offered an opportunity to attend the United States Air Force Academy, play football there. So I went to the Air Force Academy and we played football. My goal was to beat Notre Dame every year and then graduate and be a pilot. And so that was the original plan. But as I've learned here, the lifetime of coaching, you have the game plan, but how you win or lose depends on how you adjust to the game plan. So my first big life game plan adjustment was a car accident I was in my sophomore year, and so I was broken up pretty good. And since that point in time, I've put a lot of orthopedic surgeons, children's through college with all the surgeries I've had. So I went through that trauma. I lost my pilot qualification status, but being a football player, I knew I was, I lost my PQ, but I could still play ball. So after a bunch of surgeries, I continued to play college football. I ended up not being able to be a pilot. Finished my academics and my football at Western Illinois University. At that point, I was going to go to law school. So plan B from superhero Captain America pilot was to go to the FBI and be serve for, protect and serve in that capacity. And the best path to the FBI in those days was law school. So I was going to attend law school after my football days. And my senior year, after another surgery on a couple screws in the shoulder, I was offered an opportunity to coach, and it worked. I loved it. Recruiting was enjoyable. Building the relationships, being a teacher on and off the field, it really was a great fit. And my father was a legendary high school coach. My mother, an English teacher. I never ever thought I would go down the path of education and coaching at all. And in fact, I've done both. I've been a high school principal twice along the journey.
Oh, wow.
I've coached high school in a couple different states. I've been at 4 major universities. Started there at Western Illinois University, went on to the University of Wisconsin, and went from graduate assistant. So I did get my master's degree. I never did attend University of Chicago Law School as planned, but and then I fast forward. I coached through University of Wisconsin several years, a couple head coaches, and then I took an interesting change in the 1980s. I left a Big Ten university and I went to a Southwestern Athletic Conference university in the SWAC. So here I was, a young coach, joining a staff at an HBCU school in Houston, Texas, Texas Southern University. It was a tremendous career move. I learned, I grew, I improved. I was in Houston, Texas, so I was in incredible recruiting grounds and recruited throughout the state of Texas and the South. And so it proved to be a great move professionally. coached and recruited and worked with a number of tremendous players. Obviously, yeah, the HBCU has produced great NFL players for years, and those the schools really were a lot of fun. And I grew as a person, and I grew as a coach during those years. Some of the guys, James Williams, Will Moore, Joe Birch, Michael Strahan, you might have heard of. All those guys went on to get opportunities in the National Football League after playing with us in SWAC, and it was great. Then I returned to the Big Ten, coached at Purdue University with Fred Akers, and then we had kids, and that changes everything. And so I settled myself down, and I worked with the high schools. So I had this master's degree in education, and I went back and I had taught in colleges along the way. So I went back and I took two paths. Remember that whole FBI Captain America path?
Yeah.
I revisited that. I went to the FBI office in Houston and applied. And then the other path was football, and that had been my world. And so I wanted to scale it down to make sure that I wasn't an absentee father. So I looked at high school coaching, and I was in the state of Texas, which is a wonderful place for high school football. And so I took a job in Austin, Texas at St. Michael's Academy. Father Conzen was the head of the school. Later, he went on. Actually, his other football relationship was Sean McVay, who he was the principal in Marist School in Atlanta when Sean was an actual student athlete there. So when the Rams made the Super Bowl, Father Conzen did their services for the team. So it was kind of fun. He contacted me. He says, "Hey, Dean, you kind of really got me going on this football path." And later on, he got to do the chapel service for the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
So that's cool. But no, we had a great time at St. Michael's Academy. But what happened was the FBI said, "Hey, we're interested." And when I met Father Conzen, he gave me this profound quote because he slid the contract across the table. I was there with my wife and accepting the job as the principal athletic director and head football coach at St. Michael's Academy in Austin, Texas. And in Texas, as you know, priorities would make me the football coach, the athletic director, and then also the principal. So we accepted that role, but not before I got this quote that I've used throughout my professional career. Father Conzen, as I slid the contract across the table to me, he said, "We really, look forward to you coming and taking this leadership role at our school." And I said, "Father, I want to be completely transparent, have everything on the table." I have simultaneously applied for a number of jobs, coaching jobs and school and education jobs, but I also applied to the FBI. And I would give that, it's a 12 to 18 month process for evaluation and check and background checks and interviews and that process of selection. I may or may not be invited to the FBI Academy in Quantico, but in fact, I have initiated that. And if in fact they offer that to me, it's a consideration I would consider. Mm-hmm. And I want you to know that because you're offering me a fabulous position here at St. Michael's Academy. And I may or may not be here 20 years. And he said, and this is the quote, push the contract back. He goes, "I'd like you to sign this, Dean. We've made a decision that we'd like your leadership here." And the quote was, "Because I believe excellent leadership, however brief, will have a far more lasting impact than mediocrity forever." I was like, that was pretty powerful. Yeah. I signed on, and we turned things into overdrive there at St. Michael's Academy. So he said, as I signed it, he said, "So make an impact." Mm-hmm. I was there for 1 year.
Oh, wow.
So moved our family, got everything situated, hired a tremendous staff in our various leadership positions in the coaching student athletes in sports, educators, in our teaching staff. And that wonderful little school is today a tremendous college prep school. There's St. Michael's Academy in Austin, Texas. and we went and did well. Our girls basketball team, went to state. We were fortunate in football. We took 23 scrappy little young men, and we made a run. And we went all the way into the quarterfinals there in the state of Texas. And we had a wonderful season. All of our sports and areas thrived. We raised a bunch of money so they could expand the facilities, and the FBI came calling and said, "Hey,
Wow.
we're interested." So long story short, I moved my family cross country, accepted the position with the FBI, hired the athletic director, the principal, and the head football coach replacements for my roles at St. Michael's, and we moved on. I was obviously not supposed to serve our country in the Air Force as a pilot, and it turns out I wasn't supposed to serve our country in the FBI, because as I was running and getting my fitness level up to go to Quantico for the training, car came. I jumped out of the way. I broke my ankle.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't, and so my wife said that was the blessing, and so I returned my path, to football. And I was fortunate that I had enough successes and relationships in my years of college football, and then some success at high school level, and relationships. In the process, I built a business called the War Room with a gentleman named Gary Horton, and Gary was a longtime NFL scout, and the War Room went on to become what is today Scouts Inc. ESPN purchased our company.
Oh, wow.
But that transition from the War Room allowed me to plug into NFL teams at a higher level than I had been as a college coach. And so plugging into those NFL teams, they saw our personnel work, and ultimately that led to, I think, 5 of our staff members getting jobs in scouting and personnel in the league. Our most notable War Room alum is Jim Nagy. He's a Senior Bowl executive director. Jim started with us. Another very visible alumni of the War Room. He's still at ESPN. He traveled with the company, and that's Todd McShay, who runs the drafts analysis for ESPN. So those are a couple of young guys that went on to have fantastic careers. I'm envious of Jim Nagy. He's got multiple Super Bowl rings from his years with the Packers, the Patriots, the Seahawks, and the Chiefs.
Wow.
My years with Minnesota Vikings, we had a couple of championships, and I'm fortunate. I had a fabulous career, but the one thing he didn't get to attain was going past that NFC Championship to the Super Bowl. So we had a great run, and then I was offered an opportunity to join Dennis Green's coaching staff, and that was a dream come true to be coaching in the National Football League, and we made a run. We were winning. Our kids were born in Houston, but they grew up mostly in Minnesota, and through that long run with Dennis Green, and then later Mike Tice as head coach, and they making other playoff runs, we had a great opportunity. As football is, the team sold. The new ownership want to bring in their coaches. Brad Childress from the Philadelphia Eagles was brought on board. Chili and I were friends, and ironically, we had always talked that we probably never coached together because our philosophies were like apples and oranges, right? But when he and I talked, I said, "Don't worry about an interview unless you are trying to have me switch to defense." And so, so that's the transition there. My opportunities to stay in the National Football League were 3, and it just wasn't the right fit. At that time, now our 2 sons were in high school. They'd grown up there. They'd done everything right. I've been a spokesman now for a number of years with Tony Dungy's foundation called All Pro Dads, and I didn't want to be the All Pro hypocrite. So I put my family first. I stepped away from coaching, and at that point in time, I was fortunate to have some media opportunities. So I did TV and radio for 6 years. My 6-year run at NFL radio on Sirius XM led to a new opportunity. I was contacted after being heard on the radio internationally by a company out of Australia called Catapult. Catapult Sports reached out to me and asked if I would help introduce their GPS athlete analytics products to North America. And so I studied them and learned, and I got a little deeper dive into the sports science aspects, and ultimately they turned out to be a terrific relationship. We the catapult analytics, GPS analytics is in every major sport except I think baseball. So the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, NCAA schools, sports from women's field hockey to men's hockey to football. It is a very useful tool once you understand the methodology and how to use the data. So we worked with a lot of coaches for those years. At that point in time, I was a free agent in the business world, and I was offered an opportunity to go with Zebra Technologies. And I worked with Zebra, and Zebra then is known to most football fans as Next Gen Stats. That's the branding that the NFL has. So Next Gen Stats has RFID technologies in the shoulder pads, and that's how they do all the tracking during the TV broadcasts and at practice fields and so forth. So I've had a really interesting run. Then I became the tech guy, which is ironic, Mark, because I can hardly text messages, right? And so in that process, I was fortunate to just be a coach, build a team, have a vision, and then let players play, let them do their jobs. And so I learned the technology piece just as much as I was teaching it, I was learning. And then talking with Troy Vincent in the NFL league office, he said, Dean, this is all great, but how do we increase player safety? We want to we don't want to make the game softer. We just want to make it safer. So we went down a number of different paths. And in the process, I came to the concept of, in-season player development will help NFL teams. Because as we've seen, the injury rates have just been rising, and the history and the studies show that. And so, as the NFL product was getting later in the season, the players that were coming on the bottom of the rosters as replacements to injuries weren't as prepared as they should have been, and therefore you kind of saw a decline in overall performance levels from NFL teams, because their players weren't as ready as they should have been when they came into the bottom of the roster, and an injury moved them up, right? And when they found themselves competing to get on the field, they weren't ready. So that's where the NFL Alumni Academy came in. That was the genesis. We made this presentation to Troy Vincent and his entire football operations staff. They liked the concept. We do it privately. We do it in a partnership and with the NFL Alumni Association. The NFL Alumni Association represents everybody that ever played or was contracted to play in the National Football League. And so it's been a great relationship and dynamic. It's a need that teams use, and so of course we decided to launch our very first NFL Alumni Academy the year of COVID, and so 2 years ago, this is our third season now. 2 years ago, we were scrambling to make adjustments because we had to fulfill all NFL protocols. And that first year of COVID, they changed on a regular basis. The quarantines were 14 days, 6 days, they're everything. So we were really, tap dancing to keep up with all the NFL protocols, all the testing protocols. So again, another learning experience. But in that process, we put a number of guys back on teams. And so teams were signing players, and they were much more prepared. Teams liked the fact that we are all NFL coaches. Everybody at the academy, our entire staff, including our operations guys, have all worked with teams and have long tenured coaching careers. We've got head coaches, we've got Hall of Famers coaching for our staffs, and everybody's an NFL vet, and that gives great exposure to the players, but also gives us credibility with the teams. And and so as we do this process, we've been fortunate to bring on overachieving players that have the talent level that just had one deficiency or another that kept them off a roster. And then from that, we coach that deficiency out. We make them better. We improve their football IQ, because a step ahead in your head is faster than two with your feet. And so we do all the little things to teach them the game, to teach them how to be a pro. And that was the extent of our, origin of the academy. and placing guys back on teams. Teams are satisfied. We guys are in the academy on a Thursday. They get signed to go out, do a workout, and crush the workout. Then they move on to get to practice squad. We've had guys leave on a Thursday and be active on Saturday, or excuse me, on Sunday, and be in the stat sheet. Getting tackles on the field. So we've had great successes. We've taken guys from not having a pro day to now being second year of an active roster guy. And so long story short, we've had enough success putting players back on NFL teams that we were very popular now. And and the NFL teams like us. It's taken 3 years now. We have great traction. We have a private web portal, and that's how the teams can go and view what we do every day. So I just come and leaving the field. The players are out there. Everything we're doing is taped, all right, and it's on a private web portal just for the 32 NFL teams. And that's the dynamic of how the academy came to being, how we are here today. Now, since COVID, we've expanded our positions to we do all 22 positions, as opposed to the first year just doing offensive line, defensive line, and running backs. Yes.
Okay. And so the NFL Alumni Academy was not created because of COVID. It was just bad. It was already created before COVID.
Yeah, and a number of years before, actually.
Okay, gotcha.
We took time to launch because I was getting feedback. I was talking to everybody from Hall of Fame legendary personnel guy Gil Brandt, and getting to coaches and friends throughout the league, general managers, personnel directors, so we put this thing together the right way. And when we shared it with the football ops people in the league office, they loved it, concept. But we were doing it privately, much like how the combine is privately managed and operated. We were doing it separate from the league, but as a service to the league.
Gotcha. And so the process of you kind of explained, like, so NFL teams will go on a portal, they need a certain player, and then so that guy can get pulled on a Thursday and then moved and be on an active roster on Saturday. So I know that there's basically 4 sessions to this, right?
Yeah.
If they get pulled, then do you fill that spot, or do you wait until the next session? And like, how does that work?
We fill the spot.
Okay.
We have a couple players coming in, this week, 4 guys that have had workouts and things. So yes, we replace our roster. We run it like an NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a full roster slot. We've got 60 guys plus 2 quarterbacks, 62 guys, and we have all positions, and we run our week just like an NFL practice. We teach guys up tempo. Now, the one thing we don't do is hit. We don't go full pads. We don't hit because we're keeping everybody healthy. But we do teach how to practice NFL tempo in jerseys and shorts, so that we can teach them how it will be at the NFL level, because you got to have that tempo and the pace and the footwork and the hands and the angles at the NFL speed, but not taking guys to the grounds and things when we do our one-on-one competitions or 7-on-7 competitions. So it's a very intense competitive environment, but we teach them how to practice so they're not hurting their teammates.
Gotcha. And then so basically people would need to check the website weekly, because that roster turnover you could be a couple of new guys, a couple coming in every week. One thing you mentioned, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the portal is 24/7 access to NFL teams. So some teams will have somebody check it daily and look at the tape. So we upload tape from practice right after. We get the best reps of the players so the teams can evaluate, and then they can compare the college grade they had for that player or a pro grade they had for that player with what they see. And they also know that the young man's going to be in great shape. He's going to be improving his football IQ because he's in the classroom looking at film with NFL coaches, and he's going to work on his technique. So whatever, if it was hands or footwork or just understanding the game at a higher level, whatever it is, we work on that.
Now, you also mentioned quarterbacks. Now, are they same thing? I thought there was a little difference between quarterback. I mean, you need a quarterback to throw the ball, clearly, but are those guys also getting called up too, or are they just kind of permanent guys?
This is a unique, obviously quarterback position is unique, but our quarterbacks in our camp come to us through our partnership with the XFL. And
Okay.
that's the next phase of our growth. Was we wanted to partner with the XFL. They have a very NFL friendly calendar with
Mm-hmm.
their training camp in January, games in February, March, and April. Allows players the opportunity, if they have great success in the XFL and are dominant in the XFL, they will get evaluated by NFL teams for that game tape on all those XFL games. And if they're good enough, their schedule allows them to join, NFL rosters in May, for OTA practices and mini camps and or June. And it also gives them time to heal up so they're physically ready when training camp comes so they can compete. So May and June allow them to put themselves on the radar with the team that signs them and helps them on their depth chart as they approach training camp. And then training camp comes. So the XFL calendar was very NFL friendly. Our job is to help guys make it to the National Football League, and in the process, they're going to have opportunities with the XFL, which aligns with our goal of getting them to the NFL.
So you said there. So right now there's two quote unquote XFL quarterbacks practicing. Do you
Yes. I'm
mind
sorry
telling
to
us who they are?
get back to the differential of the partnership. At all the other positions, the NFL Alumni Academy, we extend invitations and we work in collaboration with the XFL personnel directors to make sure that everybody that is on our invite list qualifies for their invitation list and opportunities. But our goal is to the guys that we invite have a higher probability of making it to an NFL, camp or practice squad. And so ultimately, the quarterback piece, the XFL will assign quarterbacks, all right, that they want, and that gives us good arms throwing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have real competitive 1-on-1s, 7-on-7s, and team periods where we have good quarterbacks. And the two quarterbacks we have in session one are doing an outstanding job. So they're both two young men that are, I think, will do extremely well in the XFL. They both have had NFL, training camp time. One even played a year up in Canada. So that we've got a quarterback from Hawaii, Cole McDonald,
Mm-hmm.
and a quarterback from Elon, Davis Cheap. And
Oh, cool.
Davis and Cole have done an amazing job. Davis was released there at the end of Carolina camp, and Cole had been with Tennessee Titans and then played a year in Canada. And they're both doing a tremendous job. And I'm impressed. And I know the XFL leadership has got to be happy.
Oh, cool. Interesting. So how did this all, because clearly we're an XFL podcast show. And so how did the partnership come about between the Alumni Academy and the XFL?
Well, we're all NFL guys,
Mm-hmm.
and so are the XFL leadership, right? So Russ Brandon, Doug Whaley, had been president and general manager respectively of the Buffalo Bills. Doug's been in the league for years with Pittsburgh and others. And then Mark Ross was with the Giants. And so we had relationships and friendships with the leadership of the XFL. And ultimately, we discussed this very situation, how the academy could become also a development program for XFL players, because they're seeking, the next best players, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next best NFL guy, and we're here to develop NFL ready players. So we have the same goals, and we also have the same dynamics in the relationship with the NFL, where we want the players, to succeed and go to the NFL. Both us at the academy and the XFL leadership, they want the stars of their league to go star in the NFL, because that makes the next rising star want to be an XFL star, and they want to play the highest level of football possible. So they want to have the best personnel available, and so it was a mutual benefit for both our academy and the XFL league as they reignite and relaunch. It was just a great fit. and the leadership works extremely well together, and we're allowing us to collaborate. So personnel we have are all going to be the rising stars.
So how does the process work? So you have your 4 sessions throughout the year. Players come in. Are those players that are part of the pool? Is the XFL working with you and saying, hey, these are the guys that we want? Or like, how does this player pool get filled?
Our director of player personnel is a longtime NFL veteran and pro personnel, Jeff Robinson. And JR and I, sometimes with JR every week, meets weekly and or daily with leadership from the XFL on their personnel. They have 8 personnel directors for their 8 teams. And then Doug Whaley has a staff at the league office for the XFL. And JR is our point man. And we collaborate. So everybody that we invite has gone through XFL scrutiny as well. If there's anybody they don't want on the board, that would have an impact on if we invite them or not. And ultimately, it's been a tremendous working dynamic. And so that's how we go through it. As you can imagine, collectively, we have all evaluated hundreds and hundreds of football players over the last 6 months. And obviously, since training camp, the majority of the guys we reach out to were just released from an NFL team. And we're working to figure out what can help them return to an NFL roster. And those are the exact players that the XFL seeks, because they want to have the next best player that isn't on an NFL roster.
So the process is they go in, they are in this first session. If a guy gets cut, do you guys ever cut somebody? You bring somebody in, you're like, yeah, and this is just not working, or maybe they don't want to be there, or like,
yeah.
So if they are cut, then they don't get, because there's this whole thing about if you graduate,
right,
you get an XFL contract,
right,
to be part of the training camp, and you're basically guaranteed to be drafted.
So 2 parts to your two answers to your question. Yes, we do cut guys. We have that capability because we control it and we fund it, and we don't want guys that aren't passionately pursuing the higher level. So if a guy who got cut and is feeling sorry for himself and all that, we'll give him some counsel and some guidance and tell him to work through it and use it to fuel performance as opposed to fuel his depression. And so we work with those guys, but we won't allow the proverbial one bad apple, right, to spoil the opportunity for everyone else. So we have sent guys home each year, and if they weren't doing the work or they were making excuses, all the things that would get you cut if you were a free agent on an NFL team, late to meetings and miss a shuttle, excuses, no hustle, no effort, attitude, negative, bad attitude, anything that takes away a negative impact on the opportunity for the other, members of the academy and players that are seeking their professional dreams, they're out of here. And so we have a great environment. The enthusiasm and the effort is tremendous. It's positive. Guys rooting for each other, competing against each other, and so we do cut. And to the other part of your question about are they guaranteed a contract? Yes, part of the relationship we have with the XFL, and that's why we collaborate on the selection process, right, and who we invite, so that they're all XFL approved, if you will, and then when they graduate, they're guaranteed an opportunity to be on an XFL team in camp. Now, I can't say to the draft because I don't know the internal workings of how the XFL is going to manage all of the drafts but they're guaranteed an opportunity to be on a roster in camp. And then they have to be the athlete to win the job, after the XFL's camp. And so we're betting that the guys we bring in are going to be frontline players in the XFL if they don't make an NFL roster.
Gotcha. And then if they do, like say you have somebody that gets picked up by an NFL roster, and I'm following pro football, over the last couple of years. There's the Tom Brady's, these get these big contracts, but then there's a lot of guys that get cut, they get released, they get cut, you know what I mean? They go to another team and a week later they're back. So if a guy doesn't graduate but gets an NFL opportunity, then let's say he plays for the Lions for a week or so. One, would he, and he gets cut, does he go back to the academy, or is he just kind of done? And will that player get an XFL contract if they're not picked up down the road?
So it's a great question and an interesting scenario, and one that we've experienced. So what you described is what I call the up and down of the NFL, right? Especially the bottom of the roster. So guys will be up for 2 or 3 weeks, and then a veteran returns from IR and they're cut, right? And we've seen that time and time again. So when they are up, all right, we're excited, we're happy. When they're cut, they're part of the academy family. We will bring them back to complete graduation, as you will, and or if they've completed the graduation and then gone up to the NFL, and then it happens later, they're part of that guaranteed opportunity in the XFL. Gotcha. So those are a couple scenarios, but it does. You're spot on, Mark. It's the NFL up and down that these guys go through. They'll be up, 2 weeks on practice squad. They get elevated to active. They get to play special teams or get in the game, and then next week they're cut. And it's to no fault of their own, or just numbers game or new position needed, because the dynamics of the volatile nature of the NFL. You don't know exactly. Sometimes they'll cut a linebacker because they need a tight end, and that's just roster spots and salary caps and all that. So there's a lot of dynamics into why a guy gets released. Our job is to overcome those and give them competitive advantage to return.
Gotcha. So I have 2 more questions. One is, originally the idea was that you guys were going to practice in Canton, Ohio. I was in Canton for the USFL championship game. Love Canton, Ohio. But then you guys moved to Texas. Was that always the original plan, or what was going behind? Because now the XFL, you guys are basically in the home headquarters of the XFL.
Yeah. Well, 2 parts. We loved Canton, Ohio. I'm a football lifer, as we shared earlier. And I just would love and respect the game and the history of the game. And that's the genesis and the birthplace of the NFL and of course the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we loved being there and absorbing, that atmosphere. But it was in Northeast Ohio, and November, December is kind of some rough weather. And so we needed to go, when we expanded to all 22 positions, we needed to have a warm weather city. And in Dallas is centrally located to get to teams when players leave us. We're 15 minutes from the DFW airport, 25 minutes from Love Field. So we have great proximity. It's extremely convenient. This hotel that I'm in, where our team stays, our academy team stays, is less than a mile from Choctaw Stadium, where we practice, the old Texas Ranger Stadium that was reconfigured for football. And so all the dynamics were in place for efficiency. Then, top it off with the relationship and partnership with the XFL. It just makes for a natural transition. As a matter of fact, I'll add a little frosting on the cake to our academy package. When the NFL season ends, when our academy season ends, our players will go home for Christmas if they're not leaving to go to a team. After Christmas, they'll come back, and our performance coaches will spend 2 weeks leading up to the XFL training camp in January. They'll spend those 2 weeks after Christmas and until the training camp starts in early January, conditioning. So when you're an academy graduate, you're getting 2 weeks of extra elite conditioning. So when you hit the XFL training camp, you're ready. You're in the best shape. You're ready to go dominate. You can take all the things you applied and learned at the academy and move it forward to your career, starring in frontline guys in the XFL.
Oh, interesting. My final question is: there was talk about a TV show that you guys there was filming of a TV show but never aired. Is the XFL filming stuff now? Do you think is there any television around this stuff?
obviously when the ownership of the league has the head of a huge production company in Danny Garcia
Mhm.
and one of the biggest movie stars on the planet
Yeah.
in Dwayne Johnson, that lends itself to, I'm sure, a lot of different media situations. What you're referring to was a series that was filmed last year by a production company. They spent the season with us in Canton, Ohio, at our academy, and they created a show. It's an 8 episode show, and it was called The 54th Man. Obviously, 53-man rosters, and these are the next guys.
Uh-huh.
And so and to be honest with you, I'm not on that side of this business,
Mhm.
and I don't know, but they wrote, created. I saw some episodes, and I saw the sizzle reel and the trailers and all that, but I don't know where it will end up.
Mhm.
They said it's the kind of content that is evergreen. Obviously, we're not playing games, and so you don't have dating. So they like the human interest stories of the players and the following through. I mean, we had guys, doing proposals and things and during the season, and
Mhm.
it was just organic. And so they followed, and they went home with players on Thanksgiving and did different things. So it was pretty interesting. I haven't seen where it's headed.
Mhm.
They've been talking to networks and streaming services. So I gotta tag out on
Mhm.
when and where it will air. What I saw was interesting, mostly because the stories behind these young men are quite interesting, quite motivating. You make you have empathy for all that they've done to overcome to pursue these dreams. So,
Mhm.
yeah, when and if that 53rd man airs or 54th man airs, stay tuned, I guess. But we'll see. But no, I would imagine that with the leadership of the XFL, they'll have fantastic media coverage, and the social media aspect as well, because again, Dwayne Johnson's one of the more popular people on the planet.
Are they covering it right now while you're there?
We have
Or people are filming stuff?
yeah, we have a group that is filming and capturing things, and it's kind of piggybacking off of last year's program.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, Dean, I really appreciate you taking the time to come off the field and speak with us XFL fans and kind of give you some insight. We definitely learned a lot, and I'm very excited and are interested. I know a lot of fans will be interested in following the players that are part of the academy because they could be make their way to the NFL and they could be stars in the XFL. So I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me. We're really enjoying the dynamics of the partnership with the XFL. Anything that's good for football, we support, and we're excited about the leadership and what they're doing and where they're taking the league. And this new launch of the XFL, I think, will have great legs. And we're here for the long haul, and we want to continue to support the XFL for the long haul. So hopefully, our academy grads can shine on the gridiron this spring for the XFL teams.
All right, we're here back for a second time. Ray Austin, the Fan Control Football Commissioner. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it, man.
All right, so now we're gearing up. We have season 3.0.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's coming in the spring. So why don't you tell us about what's coming up with version 3 or season 3?
Season 3. Wow. I mean, what we want to do is to kind of sharpen up the axe that we're chopping the wood with right now. We're not going to make lots of changes in the sense of growing the league, in the sense of we're going to stay with the 8 teams.
Okay.
But we're in the process right now. This is the toughest process, is finding athletes, and I think our football ops did such a great job last year with the league and the players that we had. And to have those guys come back would be great. Usually some of these guys moved on, and we've seen some of them moved on. I see some of the familiar hats in the back of some of the leagues that are popping up, and other leagues are popping up. And we had guys that had some success stories like Cavante Turpin and Travis Trevodian playing in the NFL. So we want to really duplicate that, replicate what we did last year when it came to our guys. It'd be great to get guys like Jamil and Slick Nick back, but a lot of those guys may end up getting picked up in other leagues. But we'll definitely have our core guys that we have from last year trying out, and we'll be reaching out to those guys. But we're always looking for new stars, Mark, man. And I think that's the biggest thing and the greatest thing about Fan Control. I get emails all the time from fans and saying that, hey, I know about this guy. This guy lives in my local city, and he played a few years and got hurt and wants to get back into it. That's the type of information that we need. I open all those emails up. I get all those highlights from players, players that want to play and are looking for that second opportunity. Like, I'm looking for the diamonds in the rough, and sometimes that's hard to find. But a thing that we also do in Fan Control is we look for that more than the athlete guy too. So it's a big process, and it takes a lot of people, a lot of hands, and a lot of eyes to find the right guys.
So now you guys are starting the process of having some kind of tryouts and stuff. Do you want to let because we have a lot of players message me like they message you with their highlights. Why don't you tell them about what's coming with the player tryouts?
Yeah, so we got trials coming. I mean, we've changed a few of for the dates, and this is very, very new. But our LA and Chicago will be changed that the 30th and I think it's the 11th. We're still waiting to figure out what those days are going to be. But our LA tryouts is still going to be December 11th. Atlanta tryouts are going to be January 8th, and we're going to have some upcoming new dates and some new cities that we haven't announced yet. And the reason we say that is, Atlanta is going to be our home. That's where the home of SGF is. Atlanta is always our last stop. And these past tryouts, we learned that guys are going to wait. Guys are going to wait to the end to beat, train as much as they can and then just kind of focus on that one tryout. So we want to try to get as many guys as we can before then. We don't want to be waiting at the end of the combines and we get 100 guys we're evaluating. We want to start chopping those guys down as much as we can and sharpen that axe as fast as we can. So we've got a couple more states and cities that we'll be announcing really soon.
Okay. And then, so really for season 3, are you going to keep the same thing? Any changes to the television deal at all? You still have that NBC and Twitch kind of thing? Is that all staying the same?
Yeah, we are still in negotiations with all those the same players as we had last year. NBCLX has been phenomenal with us, so they're going to be an exciting and a partner that's going forward with us, as well as Twitch, DAZN as well, Peacock. We're working on those. All those deals are looking to get done and will be done and going into the future. We've got some of our great sponsors that are going to be doing some really cool stuff with. We had the Progressive Fifth Down. We had the Wendy's Hot Mic. We had the replay booth with Great Clips. We're going to do a lot of those similar things. And so we're in this process right now, Mark. And just so for the fans to know, we have football that we got to get ready for, but you got to peel back so many different layers from, like you said, distribution. Where the game's going to be played, or where the game's going to be seen, location. Reconstructing the facility. We'll be playing in the same facility for Fan Control Hoops, so we'll have to spin that whole facility for football. So there's just a lot of things that we have that we're going to be doing in the next few months. But it's Fan Control, so our fans are used to it.
Yeah, how is that playing in your own kind of facility that first season or the 2.0 era?
I can't. I tell everybody, you're doing yourself a disservice if you can't come down and see the game for yourself. It is literally like, our production company, CLP, took our idea and just was like, wow, and gave it to us exactly the way we wanted it. If you've never been to Atlanta and to Pullman Yards is the old Pullman Porter railroad company. It was like the first Black labor union that got labor unionized. And so it's still there. And it's just this big rustic railroad junk all over the place. They've shot Divergent there, Bad Boys, just a ton of movies there. And when we looked in there, we were like, man, that's what we wanted. We didn't want that, sit back in the stadium, everybody away from there, away from the action. We wanted it to be intimate, and the way Pullman is set up, it was incredible. It was incredible to see. So I would highly suggest, if you're in the Atlanta area or anywhere close, absolutely come to a game. It'll be an awesome experience.
Now this year you said you got Mike Bibby on, now you've got this fan control hoops going on. Like, how is that going to impact the football schedule? Like, how is when is the basketball going to start?
Yeah, we're like I said, Mark, so you're throwing a lot of stars at me right now, man. Like, no, we're doing a lot of things parallel, sort of, kind of. I can say it like that. Football will definitely start first. We're still, again, going through the process of scheduling not only the season, the games, but also distribution where we're going to play. So there's just a lot of moving parts, and I hate to put out some dates out there for you guys for them not to hit. But we're putting the right people in place. We've got our coach on board, Mike Bibby. You already saw Baron Davis is on board. We announced Michelle Roberts. The NBA Players Association. Was a part of NBA for the last 15 years. You can just see how important this is to us, and how much impact that we're going to have in basketball, and the people that are going to be a part of it. We've got some really cool people that we're going to be announcing. You guys are going to be excited about. So I'm excited.
So you're going to be involved in that as well? I mean, I knew this was kind of like your idea back in the day. You kind of had this idea about. Did you ever think that it would go to like basketball?
Man, Mark, somebody asked me that the other day. They were like, would you have ever thought? I would have been like, no, I didn't. I'm just being completely honest. My idea went to football, and we just got so many smart people in this company. All the other things are going to come off of this, which is, people are always talking about, like, man, what about this league and that league coming up? I'm like, more football, the better. Like, there's only so many roster spots out there for guys to play in, and you don't have to compare us to every league that pops up. We're going to be in so many different other sports. You know what I mean? So I love football, but I know football players love tennis. They love soccer. They love basketball. So we just want to create this super sports league that fans have never said. When I tell you guys, man, you guys see I'm a little jealous, because the basketball stuff is pretty damn cool.
Now, is the timeline for the football season still going to be kind of how it was last year, or are you thinking would it get pushed back, or like how is that kind of?
That's a good question, and I think, again, going back to trying to figure out what's the best place, because sports is year round, and we got to be careful about where we put ourselves, so we just don't X ourselves out of just so much going on at sometimes of the season. So we don't want to, get pushed into playoffs and go into, in that area or around baseball. So we're just really trying to. It's a tough dance, Mario. I can't really answer that, and I wish I could, but we're still just trying to figure out what is the right timing for all that to happen. 1 or 2 weeks could change everything. You know what I mean?
Right. So on the horizon, you have the XFL is coming in their season, then you have to deal with the USFL and their season. How is that? And then you guys are all kind of competing for players now, and this dynamic has changed from when you guys first had the first version of it to year two, now year three. It's like every year a new league kind of pops up. Like, how are you guys dealing with that?
Yeah, look, every year a new league pops up, it pops out. Like, it happens.
Yeah.
Well, our business model is very different than all those, and I wish them all luck, because my players want to play in those leagues. So if I have a chance to help those guys further their dreams to do that, then so be it, man. I'm all for more football. It does get, you don't want to get saturated, and you don't want people to be footballed out too as well. So if you think about I always say this about the fan control model, man, it's not just about the sports, it's the community side of it, and that's what I think and I love about what we're creating. We're just not sports,
Mhm.
we're just not football. There's just so many impactful things that fans can get involved in. You've got those two leagues coming up, but fans have no say so on what's going on, what's happening. You are just delivered a product, and it's like, here
Mhm.
you go, you deal with it. We are literally creating a league with our fans. The heartbeat, the blood cells in the league has to be the fan decisions. So we're not. I don't see us as competition. I just see us another a great escapism for real sports fans.
Yeah. Now, what about guys like Johnny Manziel, T.O.? Are they planning on returning to the league? Is there any other names that should
There,
fans?
yes, everything you said is a yes. I literally talked to T.O. As agent this morning. Yeah, this morning actually about something else, but he's still excited to come back around, and I love that we have the ability to go and grab some of my gridiron brothers that played and have been there, because man, people don't realize that T.O. and Johnny were major impacts in the football ops. People do not realize their presence alone, playing with a Hall of Famer, playing with one of the, this guy will be a college, superstar forever.
Mhm.
What he did in college was something that most just weren't able to do. Being able to play with those type of guys in your league, it not only ups our ante with the product on the field, but it gives me my satisfaction of, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted my players to feel professional. I didn't want them to just hear from me. They needed to hear from guys that had been there, guys that had messed up, guys that did
Mhm.
things right, guys who did things wrong, and they can learn from those things. And that's exactly what T.O. and Johnny was, man. And I'm really excited going forward with those guys.
And then, so are any team new ownerships coming in? Team names are going to stay the same.
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So we are going to be bringing some new team owners in. Majority of the other team owners will all be the same. There'll be, possibly some overlap with the basketball guys. So
Oh,
we
there you
are
go.
absolutely looking and having some wonderful conversations on other team owners, because I think what's happening is not only are team owners, or like our team owners now, are also spreading the word, and they're excited about spreading the word. It's making everybody else come on. Like
Mhm.
it's nothing better than to be in a conversation. Even if we're talking about basketball, we're showing all these guys the football product, and they
Mhm.
are blown away. They are literally, every person we sit down with, they're blown away. The type of people that we have had walk through those doors and have conversations with about the league, you just to see their eyes be so like, man, you guys are on to something. And I'm talking about other Hall of Famers, other NBA champion stars, all-stars, celebrity actors, celebrity artists that have been in that place and just blown away. So we're just trying to put the right people in the right, right team owners on in the league. Guys that are
Gotcha.
going to be engaged. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Destroying was awesome. Destroying used to come out to the combines, and just the way he engaged and kind of found those key players for the Glacier Boys was dope.
Mhm.
People don't realize I talked to Quavo a lot on guys, in the roster. I know that Renee Montgomery, I don't think she ever missed a game, you
Oh.
know. And then Todd Gurley being a new guy coming on, Devin Cook being a new guy, or Devin was here last year, but he actually got to come this year. For them to be so engaged with the athletes and the players, man, it's unbelievable, man.
All right. So then version 3 is returning. We'll be on the lookout for dates. There's 2 tryouts, but there could be more to come, because I will definitely be sending people your way, because they message me, like I'm sure they message you all the
Anytime.
time.
Yeah.
And then, so we're excited. So, thanks for coming on the program. Any other final things you want to tell fans about?
Guys, all you got to do is go to our website, fcf.io, Fan Control Sports and Entertainment. We are changing it because we are growing now. Now that we have hoops, we're now going to be known as Fan Control Sports and Entertainment. So just imagine all the things that are going to come from just that. But if you want to know any information, go to fcf.io. Fan Control Sports IO, or excuse me, Fan Control Sports and Entertainment. You can hit me up on Instagram, Ray Austin 36. I'll be happy to answer any questions from players, fans, you name it. You guys follow me, I'll follow you guys back, and we can just keep this thing going. Mark, thank you always, and anything you need from me, just let me know.
All right. Well, there you go. Fan Control Commissioner Ray Austin, thanks for coming on the program.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, my friends, we are back. We'd like to thank Dean Dalton and Ray Austin for coming on the program, filling in. You know, we didn't have what we wanted to talk about, which was the XFL names and logos. But hey, two great guests, lots of information from both Dean Dalton talking about NFL Alumni Academy, a lot more new things that I learned about the players, how the XFL is supplying the quarterbacks for the league. Because that was one of the questions the first question I had was who's playing quarterback for all these? Because if you notice on the website that they didn't have any quarterbacks, and you also see the player turnover. It's not something that these players will come in for, the one session and then that out. They could be coming and going, and definitely, keeping an eye out on that. And the XFL, had to say, and those players, lots of information there, lots of information from Ray Austin, Fan Control Commissioner. Changes to the Fan Control football tryouts. They were going to have some, but now they're moving them. I think everything is so fluid now because everybody's kind of waiting to see what the XFL is, what the XFL contracts kind of look like, how the players are in the player pool, how is that all going to work? So there's a lot of moving parts going on right now as we kind of inch closer to the XFL kickoff. And, how does that impact the USFL? How does it impact Fan Control Football? But we do have Fan Control Hoops, which I am super excited about. And make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We got to get this show to 60 likes. See, we're at 19 now. We can increase that a little bit. We still have no social media stuff. We do have a phone call. Though I want to get into a couple quick things. First, Dean Dalton had mentioned a charity and we always talk about charities here, from it was All Pro Dad. So let me pull this up. So this is the charity that Tony Dungy was part of that he had mentioned. So that will be the charity of focus this week. So All Pro Dad. You want to check that out at allprodad.com. We'll be making a donation after the program from your friends from XFL Week in Review, XFL News Hub. But it's all about, especially us guys out here, a lot of you guys probably have kids or thinking about having kids and dads, and, just really just trying to be a good dad. It's not an easy thing to do, especially you have baggage from your past, your own baggage, and then how you were raised impacts you. And so this is a great organization, All Pro Dad. We will send them a donation. That will be our donation for the week. And then also, real quick, our fantasy football. Yeah, boy. He's coming off the schneid. 2-game winning streaks, 126-80. With the win, we don't have any players going on tonight. He had Tua. He forgot about him, and Schultz did nothing. I had Logan Thomas in. He did nothing. I got to be better at checking these lineups before. Actually, I wasn't home when the games started. I was at another charity event, so doing lots of charity stuff. Excited about that. So with that, getting the win, getting back on point, even though Red Storm is 0-4, but I'm happy to get back on the winning ways there. Something that I was thinking about, and we'll get to your chat here in a second. One of the things I was thinking about when it comes to the XFL, and after doing the interview with Dean Dalton, just how focused they are really trying to develop players to get them ready for the NFL, to get them ready for the XFL. Did you guys hear Roger Goodell talking about global expansion of the NFL? And it wouldn't be just one team, but it would be 4 teams and to play in Europe. And it wasn't like it was like a little thing. I mean, he kind of went into detail of that. And my suspicion is that in order for you to have expansion, you need to train up the guys as best you can. And is, of course, not only the NFL Alumni Academy, but leagues like the XFL, testing rules, testing that kind of thing. And then, I mean, just think about how much money the NFL makes now in the United States. It is not a global phenomenon like soccer is. Could you imagine the NFL moving to Europe and having 4 teams part of the NFL? Or maybe Toronto has asked for him. He didn't mention anything about Canada, or he didn't mention anything about Mexico, which those teams could, conceivably still be in the same division per se, still be in the U.S., they wouldn't have to have a separate division. But if the NFL is serious, and Roger Goodell sounded very serious about expanding the teams, that means that they need to make sure that they have really good players. And where do you get those players from? Well, you train them up from the NFL Alumni Academy. They get experience with the XFL and USFL as another feeder system to the NFL. And that's why, so you had college football before, now you have the NFL Alumni Academy, you have the XFL, and that is a way, if those are strong over the course of the next couple of years, the NFL could make a play at adding 4 teams. It was Roger Goodell came right out and said it about, based on when he was there talking about the London game this past week between the Giants and the Green Bay Packers. So it's something to keep in mind about the strength of the XFL going forward and its partnership with the NFL. If the NFL wants to go global, they can't just put 1 team in Europe. He was saying that they had to put 4 teams in Europe, and one of the problems is players wanting to play in Europe versus playing in the United States, and how the travel thing would work, but in order for you to expand 4 teams to the NFL, you need to have a strong pool of players, and that's where the NFL Alumni Academy comes in, and the XFL and USFL and fan control football, for that matter, is just keeping these guys, and IFL. And maybe that's why the XFL has this open thing when it comes to their contracts, where they're not trying to lock anybody down. And if the XFL is partnering with the IFL to allow those players to kind of play, they're just all about developing players. Really, for the ultimate goal is to help fill the NFL and so that it can expand into Europe. And if NFL is making crazy money now, can you imagine if it's a worldwide juggernaut when it comes to sports and money and franchises in Europe? It could be off the charts. The NFL is huge in the United States, but not really anywhere else. And it already makes tons of money now. Let's see what happens in Europe. Oh, and the ELF too. You got to think about them. All right. Thanks on our chat real quick. Incredibly Impossible says hello, Paladin Demo. Christopher says awesome news by XFL. Mr. B Great says a private workout next Wednesday in Tampa for the St. Louis team. That's pretty cool. Safrinia says love Cheek. Glad to see he's getting his shot. Rangers King 669 says Kurt Warner was in the Arena Football League back when that was still around, not IFL. Agreed. Arena Football League, even though there is like a Texas Arena Football League, but there's the Iowa Barnstormers are in the IFL. So, and that was the team that he played on. James says, great interview. What a story. Yes, Dean Dalton's background story. I love talking to these to people. We had Ray Austin on once before. He gave his background and kind of the origin story of fan control football. And I love these stories because, I mean, I'm a religious guy and God has a plan. And we always think we're going in one direction, and you just kind of have to keep your eyes open and not be stuck in your ways and kind of accept what's come. And you never know what happens there. So very cool story. Jared says Black Adam is greater. XFL to Rock and Danny, LOL. Well, right now, yes. 6 years in the making, says yes for the Black Adam movie. And this is big. I feel like there are some chinks in the armor for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I really thought She-Hulk was very bad. And I mean, as much as people like Thor, I'm hoping that Wakanda Forever is really good as it was the first one, where it was darker, and it's more serious. This kind of goofball stuff is getting a little old when it comes to the MCU. It's kind of like the banter thing. I mean, the Spider-Man was cool because they brought the other Spider-Mans in. I mean, I wonder if they're trying to make a run with DC, kind of giving fans a different perspective, and Black Adam is the beginning of that. I mean, and that would be the Marvel Cinematic Universe is huge. DC would be huge as well. James says, James asks, when will USFL Weekend Review come back? I love both shows. Well, guess what? There is an episode. So once a month, but when the USFL season is off, we're going to just do kind of a recap of the news. We did an episode last week. So yes, USFL Weekend Review. It's not live because no one would be watching because the USFL is slow right now. You guys are watching because you're interested in seeing what's to come with the XFL. Next season will be a lot different because we'll already have team names and players and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure if we'll do live shows like we do now. Who knows if we're going to have a draft. So once a month, the USFL Weekend Review is back. I just did an episode last week, so you can check that out. He says, The Rock and Danny Garcia are extremely busy people, but they never make bad deals in business. Good business people have multiple hats wear and one at a time. And he also said, I'm loving what I'm hearing from the Alumni Academy. Yeah, I thought there was a lot of interesting stuff from that. Let's see here. All right, let's get to a phone call, and then we'll wrap up this week's show, shall we?
Hey, Mark, this is Jared from the Blob Stars on our NFL Yahoo Fantasy League. What was funny is that this week was a very close game. I lost by 7 points. What was funny was my fantasy QB, Josh Allen, threw to his wide receiver, Glenn Davis. If my fantasy QB would have thrown to any other wide receiver like Stephon Diggs, I would have won this week. His wide receiver that Josh Allen threw to had 171 receiving yards with 3 receptions, 2 recorded touchdowns for 32 points. He had 16 points just from that 98-yard play that my QB threw to him. So that killed me in the end. I had some chances to win. One of my running backs didn't perform. That would have been the difference. And then if I would have picked one of my tight ends that was benched, that performed a hair better, I could have won as well. So, all right, thanks a lot. See ya.
Yes, it's the NFL. This fantasy football is crazy. One little thing here, an injury or something like that. That's what makes football fun. And what makes football fun, unlike baseball, is that there's like 1,000 games of baseball. The Major League Baseball playoffs are a lot of fun to watch. But during the season, all those games, and that's what makes football unique, is that there's a finite number of games. Even though the CFL has kind of like a ton of games and only like 9 teams, it would be, I assume that I would have cut that down because the teams are kind of overlapping, playing each other every other week and that kind of stuff. But, the fact that there's not a lot of it and it's not on every day, so it just makes it fun. And fantasy football is an interactive element, and gambling is an interactive element to the game, so that it makes it more interactive rather than just watching, Umbrella Academy on Netflix, which you might like, but there's not this kind of personal thing. And that's what makes people watch games like that's on tonight. If you have a knockout pool, I have Kansas City in my knockout pool tonight, and last time I checked, Las Vegas Raiders are winning. So I normally wouldn't have had much of an interest in watching it, but between fantasy football and other things, now I'm totally want to go watch it, and that's what we're going to do right now. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I appreciate everybody for checking in and enjoyed the interviews. We'll have more cool stuff, working on some other good interviews for y'all. I just like to try to keep you in the loop and try to keep things interesting, so we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. So if you want to be part of the show, email podcast at XFL News Hub with your thoughts. You know what the deal. Leave a voicemail, 888-430-7692, extension 3. Remember to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We always really appreciate that. And watch us live at 8 p.m. Eastern every Monday on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. All right, my friends. That is it for me, folks. Enjoy Monday Night Football. Thanks for everybody for hanging out in the chat. That's it for me. And God bless, as always. And I will see you all later. Again, thanks to Dean Dalton and Ray Austin for being on the program. Always appreciate that. Later.